Hello, and welcome to the Road to Autonomy Podcast. I am your host, Grayson Brulte. The Road to Autonomy Podcast is brought to you in part by Florida Internet and Television. It's time to cut the tax on tech. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I am your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have my friend, Roger Webb, lifetime student in the restaurant industry, in the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Roger.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. We have all these wonderful conversations offline. I'm so happy to have this conversation online because you've had an incredible 45 plus year career in the restaurant industry, including working alongside Wendy's very famous founder, Dave Thomas. Will you please kindly talk about that journey and what you've learned?
Well, I had an opportunity to meet Dave Thomas when I was in my young teenage years. I was 13, 14 years old. My father was Kentucky Fried Chicken franchisee in Southern Ohio, and Dave was in Central Ohio. And Dave always talked about this concept of a hamburger place that he wanted to start. So later on, when he started Wendy's, I was going to school at University of Cincinnati, but transferred to Ohio State. And one of the things that I did was I got a job as a part-time employee at Wendy's when the third store opened. I wanted to go to Ohio State for a couple of years. Number one, I wanted to go to college so I didn't have to work in restaurants anymore. But it seems like, it's like once you get started, you better try this. I wanted to do something else. But I was able to get a job at a company that ended up growing very fast. And I had a lot of opportunities, eventually became vice president of franchising there, was able to work with a lot of people that had a lot of experience in business and the restaurant business, but I helped them learn Wendy's. I mean, I'm a 22-year-old kid helping these experienced business people learn a new business. So I would say that was the period of time when I felt I couldn't be anyplace else learning anymore. So it worked out incredibly exciting, thrilling, and a lot of hard work, but an experience that has been invaluable for me.
What was it like being at Wendy's? That you're going in there, that's the third restaurant's open, and today, in 2021, Wendy's is a household name. You talk to everybody, they know the Frosties, they know the French fries, they know Wendy's. What was it like being there at the front lines of this incredible growth, and not just the growth of a company, but the growth of a brand that became a household brand?
Well, I think that growth of that brand is the result of a person like Dave Thomas. I mean, even though we had 3 restaurants, Dave was always, we're going to be bigger than McDonald's. And you didn't know that he wasn't going to. It was just this compelling inspiration that was there all the time. And he just was constantly encouraging. He was constantly prodding. You always felt like he had plan A, B, and C in his desk, but I found out later he didn't. He was just quick on his feet.
That's incredible. So he was a true innovator. He was just there in the front lines, learning and changing and adapting as the market changed and his customers' needs and wants and tastes changed?
Yes. And I think another piece that he was unique in is that he knew how to run a restaurant himself. And he knew the importance of the details. His quote was always, take care of the nickels and the dimes, and the dollars take care of themselves. And you always felt like, you didn't want him to come in and run the restaurant in your place, but he could if he had to. So that was kind of a bit of a pressure that was always there to do better. You felt like you had to do something more exciting than what you did yesterday because that's what he was doing.
So you grew up in the restaurant industry with your dad being a KFC franchisee. Did Dave grow up in the restaurant industry as well, or where did he learn that skill?
Yeah, he started in Knoxville at a restaurant, Regus Restaurants. Actually, he quit high school to start working in restaurants full time, and then went in the Army and worked in the food part of the Army, and came out of there and started working at Kentucky Fried Chicken for a franchisee in Fort Wayne, and he sent him to Columbus to take over some failing Kentucky Fried Chicken stores, and Dave ended up buying that partner out, and that's how he became the franchisee in Central Ohio. He had always been in it. He had been in the restaurant business himself.
So from chicken to hamburgers to a true American innovator.
Mm-hmm. He is not only the way to the commercials. I think a lot of people remember him from the commercials he was in, but that was Dave. I mean, he could be this grandfather, but don't think this grandfather image, but don't think that he didn't have a ego. It was under control, but he wanted to make the place better because that was his baby. He wanted it to be the best. And don't think that he was a pushover because he had this grandfather image. I mean, there's people that would come to him and think that he wasn't somebody you could take advantage of.
Which is fantastic. And you always strive during your career to be the best. And I want to point out that you were the first Wendy's franchisees ever to join the U.S. Department of Energy's Better Building Challenge. You were ahead of your time. You were a true innovator. Why did you see the importance in reducing energy consumption for your restaurants?
Well, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, but I think really what started the inspiration was, this management by wandering around concept. You just go look in the closets in your restaurants, and I find out in our 40 restaurants, we probably have 20 cases of fluorescent lights sitting around. So, that kind of starts the looking, and I find we had this very strict policy. You never have a light out. And so that's what got us into compact fluorescents. Compact fluorescents, they were slow to start. They would flicker. They would last longer. You didn't have to change them as often. But then when the LED lights came out, we were already looking at that as a next generation for what we want to do. So it was just kind of a evolution over a period of time, which we weren't trying to get the recognition, but we learned that we were steps ahead of where everybody else was when it came to that particular implementation of LED lighting.
Where did the never have a light out philosophy come from? Was that in your dining room so a customer wouldn't have a not good experience? Was that just to keep the brand consistent, the quality and the standards high?
That's all that small piece. That's all part of the nickels and dimes is, keep your door clean, keep the fingerprints off the window, keep all the lights, all the lights need to be working. One light is not acceptable and it needs to be fixed immediately. And I think that was all part of that detail to the whole experience of going to a restaurant.
Is that experience carry over to a majority of the restaurants, or is that an outlier in your situation where you generally cared about your product?
I think that's a piece that has become more important over time because it used to be quality service and cleanliness was the general piece, but I think it's all part of the experience now too. The experience is these thousands of little things that have to be executed perfectly every time. And if you aren't good at cleanliness, you better be excellent at quality. That's why sometimes you see a restaurant that maybe doesn't execute on all three of them, but they're exceptional at one or two of them. And
now we're going to enter into a post-COVID world. Cleanliness is the top of mind for everybody, but experience is going to come back.
Experience is, I don't think has left. It's just that the customer has temporarily left. Your brand is the experience. And that experience is that culmination of everything. The environment that you serve it in, the hospitality that you provide, the speed with which you execute your process. All of those things and good food, better food, something that's distinctly different.
Yeah, it's something that you want the consumers to enjoy. You want them to come back to your restaurant. And now we're coming here where technology is evolving, society is evolving. While the restaurant industry has had a lot of challenges during the last year, there's a lot of potential growth opportunities. Taking the brand as the experience into account, what do you see some of the growth opportunities and trends that will emerge in the restaurant industry?
Well, I think one of the big things has been convenience. Convenience has gotten to be, 10 years ago, was getting closer to every customer. But I think convenience, this delivery, this takeout business, I know in our particular business that I grew up in, the drive-through business was at one point in time 30 to 40%. Well, it had grown to 60 to 70%. Well, all of a sudden, the dining rooms get shut down and it goes to 100%. That was a big change in what happened in the quick service segment. But that was not something that was prepared for in the full service restaurant. So I think that's always going to be a part of that. And full service restaurants are going to have to gear up to that. But I don't think that the delivery is going to be quite as intensive 2 years from now, we hope, as it has been for the last year.
During 2020, Wendy's generated 90% of all revenue from the drive-thru. as we move into a post-COVID world, do you see that revenue starting to slowly decline, or do you see that drive-through revenue holding there for them?
I see that holding there. I mean, there's still certain situations in certain places where people want to go in and sit down. So I don't think it's going to, the percentages may not change that much, but the inside dining may be where the growth is. In other words, the drive-through business, total business will still grow. You want to grow 2 to 4% a year, and at least. And you're still going to see that 90% number stay there, but both will go up, I think, because the experience of going and having lunch with a friend is not as prevalent as it used to be 2 years ago. And I think that's the piece, the experience, going out to dinner, having that experience, having that entertainment, having that, I think we're still a social human being. You know, we want to be together. We want to be in an environment. We want to try new things. We want to be out and about. And I think most people are gregarious and they want to be that way. And restaurants provide all of that. There's been a hesitancy to do that lately.
When you look at the future of restaurants and individuals wanting to get together and have a really great experience and a really great time, do restaurants of the future, these are full service restaurants, do they have to be redesigned where you have, say, 25% of the store is dedicated to takeout delivery, and then the other 75% is for your dine-in customers? Do they have to completely redesign these because it's I would assume a different kitchen, maybe the takeout menu is a different menu than the dine-in menu?
I don't think they have to answer your question, they're going to have to do some things different, yes. Now, whether it's going to be 75-25 or 40-60, I'm not sure, but I just know that convenience of delivery, even from a full-service restaurant, is going to be greater than it has been, but I think that's the opportunity for the full-service or the independent restaurant. I don't think the process needs to be changed because it has to be the same food through the kitchen process, but how it gets packaged is totally different. And I think that how it gets packaged is one of the things that the full service restaurant business got caught flat-footed because they weren't accustomed to doing that. They weren't doing it much at all. I think the better they get at that and being able to make that meal that they put in front of you the same as at their dining room as the same as it's when it's put in front of you in your dining room, that needs to be improved.
It does, and you and I talk about this all the time, but I call it the French fry test.
Yeah.
That the French fries in the dining room are crispy and crunchy, and they get to your house, they're soggy. You're not happy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's there's two sides to that. I think it's product and it's packaging. One of the leaders in delivery and home convenience was pizza, and there's really two things to that. Number one, pizza delivers well. That's an easier product to work with. It had a relatively low food cost. So you had a product that fit there well. But then they got better with the box that they put the pizza in, that cover that they deliver the pizza. So when you get that pizza at your house and put it on your table, it's as hot and fresh as it is if you went to the pizza restaurant and got it yourself. So I think that's where the getting to the French fry point. I think you got to work on the packaging, and I don't know what that is. That's going to take some creative force. I just know that you can't put French fries in your typical, plastic container that's airtight, and it doesn't steam itself into mashed potato sticks. Is really what ends up happening. But I think that needs to be resolved, and how that is going to take some effort. The other thing is I think French fries aren't the only vegetable cut into sticks and deep fried that there is. There's other things that, because you take the type of breadings you can do, the type of condiments you can create a lot of different tastes using natural products that don't have to necessarily be French fries. I mean, I don't know if it's green beans. I don't know if it's asparagus. I don't know. You see a lot of growth in grilled bar food now that is these types of things. And I think that'll continue to grow. And I think there's a way to be able to make other products in that vegetable arena other than French fries, that French fries won't be king. They may not be, but they are today.
Because if you look at society with Apple's push into fitness and health and Generally, now we're in a new year. People set goals. Oh, I'm going to get healthy this year.
Yeah.
So let's use asparagus for an example. So you order grilled asparagus. Sometimes it comes to your house. It doesn't have that crunch. It doesn't have that crisp, and it gets soggy if it's not right. Is that also a packaging play as well of delivering the asparagus, or if you're going to have another type of grilled vegetable, for example, that it's not soggy when it arrives?
Yes. That's the problem with delivering vegetables in the containers that are readily available today. But I think there's ways around that. Number one is French fries that aren't cooked all the way through aren't very good. A green bean that's just kind of, you can't fix a French fry al dente. Green beans you can. So I think there's a little more flexibility in being able to provide that crispness so that it doesn't come steamed and gooey.
Let's look to the future for a minute. We talked a lot about packaging and experiences and brands, and automation with autonomous vehicles, delivery, drones are really coming into perspective. Does the restaurant industry partner with an innovative startup that says, okay, packaging for the autonomous vehicle will be different because Ford did testing with Postmates in Miami on that. Perhaps if you're going to have a delivery drone, that packaging is different because carrying it in a vehicle, you have all the bumps. Carrying it in the sky, for example, maybe you let a little air in. Do you see that packaging innovation going to that level? So no matter the way that it gets to your house, the packaging might be different, but the meal that you've ordered from the restaurant is exactly the same way that you would have it in the restaurant?
I would foresee it, yes, to answer your question. I think it is different, but I would look at it as whether it comes in a delivered vehicle, autonomous or power-driven, whether it comes in a drone or how it gets there. I think the package of the individual items is no different because it's how that product is kept based on how it's prepared and how it needs to be presented. You just don't put it in a bag and send it out. It's that package that those items go into are going to be different, whether it goes in a delivery car or a drone or however it gets or it's picked up, at the door of the restaurant.
And when this new future forms of delivery comes, how do you protect the restaurant's brand? So, give you an example. It's an example that could happen. Drone falls out of the sky. The autonomous vehicle gets into a crash. Will that have a negative impact on the restaurant's brand? Oh, you're no good. You tried new technology, and look what you did. Because all it takes is for one reporter, one newspaper to write a story and run your brand through the not so nice Mediaville.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. And I don't know the answer to that. The only thing I know is if something happens bad to a restaurant brand, it takes 18 months to get over it. That's what I've always kind of learned, whether it is a food poisoning issue, something in the food, something happens. I mean, it seems like you're just going to have to learn to deal with it for 18 months and don't make you aren't allowed any mistakes in the meantime.
Does that change your management style during those 18 months?
I don't think it changed the management style. I think it caused us to focus on certain things a little bit closer, but I think it made us understand more what you market, what you advertise. I think, you had to look at things a little bit different of how you promote yourself for a while.
And then during that time when you're careful how you promote yourself, is there any futuristic planning going on since it's a more quieter time where executives can kind of focus on the future, say, okay, for example, autonomous vehicles will be here in, say, 10 years. We are going to develop, let's call it restaurant concept A. It's going to come online in 3 years. Do you look at redeveloping the drive-through lanes for autonomous vehicles or possibly for the neurobots okay, we predict based on our internal statistics that, say, 30% will be delivery, that you completely start to redesign during that time?
I think that's an evolution that has to come, yes. I think one of the things that may end up happening too is there's going to be that fine line between how you prepare for a person that shows up for an order and privacy issues. Because I know this isn't anything brand new, but they're working on things like that you would know if somebody placed an order with you and they were going to come and pick it up, that you knew when their cell phone was within a mile of your restaurant. So you could get that order it was ready for you to pick up because they knew you were coming, either in the door or through the window. I think those are things that are going to have to be evaluated individually because whether you can just do it for I'll let you know where I am for this one visit only, and feel comfortable that it doesn't happen any more than that, because you'll be able to get your food fresher, better, quicker. I think part of that has to do, the packaging needs some evolution. It's not just call up the local cup company, bag company, and package company and get. I think you're beginning to see more evolution in logos now, and how they're promoted on the packaging and such. But I think there's a lot of changes, or not changes so much as evolutions, that have to come with that convenience piece. And it's going to involve, people don't want to have to get out of their car. The easier you can make it, the better it is.
Privacy is interesting. I would never think about the privacy, but you're right. If you say this one time only, which is the default in iOS 14, if you're going to get your food, you're going to have a really great experience. And that's something that the lawyers and the privacy individuals are going to have to take over. But you mentioned speed. In 2019, McDonald's acquired Dynamic Yield for $300 million to personalize and speed up the drive-through. Mm-hmm. How important is a very quick drive-through?
It's very important. I mean, it's part of you still got to have quality food, a friendly environment, and done in a quick way. Now, also what that means is it's not necessarily the fastest. It's how you perceive it to be. One of the examples we always use is like, you'll wait for a red light, but after a certain time, you become impatient. Now, you'll wait 15 seconds, you'll wait 30 seconds. It all depends on how much of a hurry you're in and stuff. But there's a certain period of time when you become, there's different levels. You go from frustrated to disgusted. I'm never coming to this intersection again. Well, it's the same way with a restaurant. If you can be superlative in your food, people will wait a little bit longer. If you're exceptionally friendly, they'll wait a little bit longer. One of the things, too, that I find is that these double lane, Y lane, they call them pickup window, aren't necessarily faster, but people get their order in quicker, so they feel like their process has started. At least you're working on my order now. If you're fifth in line behind the speaker and you got to sit there for a while, man, you're disgusted. But if your order is in, you're a little more patient because you're working on my stuff and you're making it better than everybody else's.
That's a really good point, because Audi partnered with a company and some of their vehicles to do for the red light, yellow light, green light. And it would show you, okay, Roger, you're going to wait this intersection 1 minute, or it's 15 seconds until it goes. But you're right with the drive-through, when there's a heightened tension in the world, people want to get their sandwich or they want to get their food. And you diffuse the situation by making it even from the sense of appearance that we're working on your food, we're making it faster, which kind of really dovetails into Chipotle's Chipotlane strategy, where it's right. Pre-ordered on an app. You pull into spot, Roger pulls in spot 2, Grayson pulls into spot 3. To me, it seems like that's a brilliant strategy, and it's already pre-ordered on an app. What are your thoughts on Chipotlanes?
I think they did the right thing at the right time. I mean, they had decided to go into this delivery, or not necessarily delivery, but go into the takeout business and make it that they're using their same process for the food, but where you pick it up is a different place. How it's packaged is a different place. One of the big advantages, though, to get back to that again, is that Chipotle food in general travels well. And when you wrap that burrito in basic aluminum foil, it's good for a lot longer than French fries in a plastic container. So that's an advantage that they had. But they have freshly prepared food. They have good recipes. It's a simple menu. Those are all the other pieces that made them successful in this Chipotle lane. And that used to be one of the distinctive differences about the quick casual segment, is that they didn't have a drive-through window. Well, Chipotle's proven very quickly that that's a big advantage for them.
You could make the argument that Chipotle is a tech company. They seem to embrace the mobile ordering app before anyone. They were the first fast casual restaurant to have an app in the App Store. And there's a really interesting statistic that recently came out during their earnings, where Chipotle's chief restaurant officer, Scott Boatwright, stated that Chipotlanes are Chipotle's most profitable experience because of the higher check averages.
Yes.
Why?
Because people are coming to pick up an order for a couple people, for a family. They're not typically coming to get it just for themselves. And I think that's one of the advantages. If they're working late or group working or something like that, why didn't somebody run over to Chipotle and get a couple burritos? A typical dining experience in a quick service would be about 1.5. Either people would eat themselves or 2 people. Well, the delivery and the pickup stuff is a higher number. So the check average is better. But, I think Chipotle had all of the ingredients there. I think everyone would like to be further along in technology than what they are. It's just that Chipotle has the ability to execute on that technology faster and better than most people do because of the product, because of the system, because of the way they do things.
And combining this whole conversation together and everything we spoke about, what is the future of the restaurant business?
I think there's a tremendous future of the restaurant business. I think one of the things that's happened here over the past year has been this shock that has changed how people have to do things quicker. Restaurants have always been evolving. There was this article, I think it was Restaurant Business Magazine, about the history of the restaurant business. And we were talking about you look at some of the menus from the 1940s, 1930s, 1940s. It's evolved. We didn't used to have tacos in the United States. We didn't have sushi. Those things just weren't there. It was meat and potatoes. We were a all beef and vegetable world, but it's much, much different. And I think that evolution of what's there is going to be, I think the experience of people wanting to go to restaurants, I think there's going to be a heightened expectation on what that experience means because there's more options. There's not 3 or 4 restaurants on every block. There's probably going to be 10. And so you've got to be better at it. But I think people want to try new and different things. And I think as more people in the family are working, hopefully everybody's got a job and work full employment. And the best option for people to do is to go out and eat.
I'm happy you mentioned the 1930s because there was a very famous businessman during that time, Sam Brofman, the founder of Distillers Corporation, who went on to acquire Seagram's. And I'd like to read this to you because during a 1938 shareholders meeting at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, Sam Brofman stated the following: "Every Seagram advertisement is designed primarily to accomplish one thing, to sell Seagrams, and not just the whiskey, to sell the fundamental principles of the House of Seagram, the craftsmanship, the traditions, the experience, the quality and the prestige that made Seagram whiskeys famous since 1857. But prestige cannot be acquired quickly. It cannot be bought. It cannot be claimed. It must be earned by the slow process of winning respect and goodwill through fine products and constantly fine advertising." It seems like the restaurants of today can learn a lot from these insightful words from Sam Brofman.
Those fundamentals have not changed, but what that means has changed because everything you're building your brand equity. That's why I've often had conflicts with the discounting, not overdoing discounting because trying to cheapen your product doesn't necessarily build your brand equity. You may have to do it from time to time just to get through a period of time. Maybe it's a slower season. Maybe it's a new product innovation that you want to try. There's certain things that you may need to do it. So I'm not saying it doesn't have a place, but brand equity is what you do every day, every minute, every hour, and that should be a part of everything that you do when you're building a brand.
You're 100% correct. And this is there's 2 brands that come to mind that every individual around the world knows is Coca-Cola and Mickey Mouse Disney. Mm-hmm. And those brands every day have to work to uphold their values and to uphold what the brand stands for. Now you look at the new innovation that you and I talk a lot about is with cloud kitchens, ghost kitchens coming out. Mm-hmm. They don't have a Coke brand. They don't have Santa Claus. They don't have Mickey Mouse. Mm-hmm. How do they develop the customer trust and develop their brand since there's no physical interaction? Mr. and Mrs. Webb can't go in and have a wonderful experience. Say, you know what, Grayson, Gabby, this was a wonderful experience. You guys should go, or we're all going to go together. How do they develop that?
It's going to be complicated. That's something that I'm not sure I understand widespread the economics of the cloud kitchen concept. I understand it if you have a well-known brand and you have a very concentrated area of people that there really isn't any available storefronts for you to work from, and you just need to get into that neighborhood and get close to it. I got it. I think that piece works. But if you go into middle America and you've got a relatively spread out population, and I'm not sure I understand how you start in a cloud kitchen because let me give you an example. I know I've been involved with a couple different restaurant concepts. And one of the things that I learned is that when you had a freestanding building, you got more brand recognition out of that than you did if you just had a storefront in a strip center. Well, I think it's the same thing here. This is less than a storefront in a strip center, that you're just, one of the things, you're going to have a much more difficult time getting brand recognition if you're only in a cloud kitchen. So I think the cloud kitchen almost has to depend on the existing brands that have already gotten themselves someplace, but they need to be in a particular zip code. Nobody's proven to me that the economic model of a cloud kitchen works. I'd love to, I read a lot about it. I hear a lot about it. People are trying it, and I think they should try it because I'm not telling you I'm right. I'm just telling you that's not what I see as the next evolution of the total restaurant industry. I see it as a segment. There's a place for it, but not overall.
I could see it as a segment for it.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about experience, but the experience for the delivery is not there. I could see a cloud kitchen in a resort environment. Let's use Aspen, Colorado, for example, where they come and they set your plates up on your table and you have this great experience. Then you, on the app, you say, okay, thank you, we're done. They come clean everything up. Almost like a digital version of a catering. That becomes very interesting because all suddenly, now you have the ability to expand margins. When you're just a traditional kitchen with you partner with a delivery service like DoorDash or Uber Eats, it's eating away at your margins, and those aren't even profitable. Yet investors are chasing this dream of growth, but there's no path to profitability.
I don't see it long term. I think the other thing too that may be underestimated is that every concept needs to have a separate kitchen. I think the concept of trying to have a common kitchen for multiple brands to work out of, that's not an option because multiple brands use different temperatures. They use different shortenings. They use different cooking techniques. And just because they have the same piece of equipment, they all operate it differently.
You're right. And not only operating differently, the dirty little secret that a lot of Americans are finding out now is fees. When you're stuck at home in a lockdown, DoorDash is currently charging a 15% service fee in California. High fees cause consumers to change behavior. Do they get so turned off by these fees that, you know what, I'm going to get on my bike, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive to the restaurant because I don't want to pay the fee.
Right. Well, I think that's where you get into people will pay more if the experience is better. But I don't see the experience better. And I'll give you another example too. Is that one of the things that we always looked at was every year we would look at, is it time for a price increase? One of the things that we learned, if you try to increase your prices in our segment, of course, we were in a lower quick service check average. We were $4 which is now $7 check average. But if we ever tried to increase our prices more than 5% in any one year, we definitely saw a drop in traffic. So to go out and just all of a sudden raise your prices by 15%, you're not increasing the traffic because the concept of just making it convenient is not necessarily what people are going to go to. I think the other problem is that a majority of when you get into the quick casual and the quick service industry, their check average is going to be somewhere in the, let's say, $7 to $15 range. Number one, that's going to have to go up because minimum wage is getting such a kick in so many different states now that's going to cause prices to have to go up. But on top of that, if you have to add, you have to add 15% on top of a $10 check, it's not going to be 15%. It's probably going to have to be a fixed amount that's going to be more than that. Now, it's probably a little more acceptable if you have a $30 check average. If you're in a mid-scale or upscale restaurant, those probably have a little more of an acceptance because people will buy into it. But still, 15% is a big number. But I don't think you have to charge 15. Why do you have to charge 15% on a $30 order and charge 15% on a $6 order? I think there's a fixed minimum it's going to have to be to make the economics of the independent delivery services work.
You're right about the fixed things. And Larry Fink was on CNBC this morning and talking about increased taxes, where he said that a business that makes up to $1 million should see no increase. They should see a decrease, where he said a large business like mine, we can afford it. And that becomes really interesting. And that opens up the government regulation where California, Massachusetts are starting to highly regulate the fees for these companies, and these companies are publicly traded and they have to do good by shareholders. So they're going to figure out another way to increase and get the revenue somewhere, which is going to end up hurting the consumer through this, the false guise of I'm helping the consumer through bad regulation. When do consumers start looking at their bills and say, wait a second, there's a $2 charge for this, a $1 charge for that. This order was $7 and now it's getting delivered to my house and it's $13? Wait a second.
I think it's already happening. And I think once people get out, get around, I think one of the things is people will pay for it now because they have concerns about going out. They have concerns about even going to pick up their own delivery stuff. I think that's one of the things that will change. People will get out and people will get around. I don't think we've become a cocoon nation forever. I think there's certain people that are there for a while, but they've got to have that confidence. They got to have that comfort level to go out. So I think people will, once they do get out and can do some things on their own, I think they're already beginning to recognize that. Because, I mean, how many $2.95 or 99-cent monthly charges do you think you look at every month? It's kind of like, well, I don't even use that. Why do I get it? So I think that day's getting closer right now.
You're seeing it with the churn rate in the over-the-top video now, where consumers are like, well, I pay $9.90 and that's $4.10. Well, I'm just going to cancel. And we saw it with the implosion of Quibi, completely imploded. When you get consumers with confidence, their habits are back to normal. They say, you know what, I don't want to pay these fees. I'll drive to Acme Restaurant and I'll pick it up. Right. Do those restaurants have to either partner with the city to redesign that curb space so when Bob, Mary, Jane comes to pick it up, they're not circling around trying to find a spot to go because then they're frustrated?
Absolutely. I mean, that's got to be part of the solution. That still has to be a convenient pickup. And what that means depends on the physical location and attributes of that restaurant. So it has to happen.
It's interesting because we've learned a lot throughout this conversation. We learned that the restaurant industry has a really bright future. There's a lot of really great innovations happening in the restaurant industry. And Roger, I'd like to ask you, as we look to wrap up this extremely insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them?
I think what I would like to see, if I could send a message to everyone, was we've got a lot of great, friendly people that are working and have worked in restaurants. They're not getting the same pay scale because they're not able to work the same number of hours that they used to. As soon as you can, as soon as you feel comfortable getting out, go out and eat. I mean, go to a restaurant. Think about how valuable that is to our economy. And restaurants have been hit as hard as any individual industry that there is through this pandemic that we've had. I think once you go out and have that experience, as long as you're comfortable going out, don't do it until you're comfortable with it. But once you've gone out and had that experience, I think you will realize how much you missed it.
You're right, because they go there, this sounds simple, but you see people, and some of the most honest, hardworking people, some of the greatest executives started in the restaurant industry. Right. There's incredible individuals in the restaurant industry, and I have to give a shout out to Dave Portnow from Barstool Sports. What he's trying to do to save the restaurant industry is absolutely phenomenal. So to our listeners, when you feel comfortable going out, go out to eat, support your local restaurant, support your local community, because they depend on you. They give you a great experience. They give you great food with great quality, and they're very thankful for your patronage. And as we heard on this podcast, the future is bright, the future is autonomous, and the restaurant industry has a great future. Roger, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Grayson. Great to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter @Road to Autonomy or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.